All right, let's dive in. Today, we're tackling remote higher ed jobs in Australia. Specifically, how to land one.
Yeah, it's a pretty hot topic these days.
It really is, and for good reason. The higher ed job market in Australia has, totally flipped since the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. Remote work used to be, a nice perk. Now it's practically an expectation.
Yeah, I mean, even outside higher ed, it feels like the old office-bound culture is fading fast.
Yeah, and the data backs that up. Flexible work arrangements are a huge draw for job
I'm
seekers.
surprised there.
Right. It can actually outrank traditional motivators, even things like career progression or job
Yeah.
security.
Yeah, wow.
There was this survey of tech workers in higher ed. It found that flexible arrangements were like the third most important factor when people were thinking about a new job.
Interesting.
Yeah. And, the desire for that flexibility, it's even stronger for women.
So, listeners, you're definitely not alone in wanting that remote life. But, wanting it and getting it, two different things, right?
For sure.
How do we actually snag one of these dream remote higher ed jobs?
Well, strategy is key. First, you got to focus on roles where you have some leverage.
Okay, leverage. I like that.
Right. Think niche skills, stuff that's in high demand. Like if a university is struggling to find someone with expertise in, I don't know, online learning design or something.
They're going to be more willing to bend the rules.
Exactly. If you've got those in-demand skills, you're in a much stronger position to negotiate for remote work.
Gotcha. Become the expert they can't find anywhere else. What else can we do to, tip the scales?
Timing is huge. You want to bring up your desire to work remotely early on.
Oh, interesting. Like, how early?
Ideally, the first interview.
Really? I would have thought waiting until you had an offer would be better.
Yeah, a lot of people think that, but honestly, you don't want to waste anyone's time.
Makes sense.
Being upfront about your remote work preferences lets everyone manage expectations from the start. Plus, it shows you're serious, you're proactive.
So no one gets surprised down the line.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. What about flexibility on our end, though? Like, if a fully remote position just isn't happening, should we be open to a hybrid model?
Oh, definitely. Working from home a few days a week, that can be a good stepping stone.
I see.
Yeah. It might be easier for them to agree to a partially remote setup initially, and then maybe down the line, you can transition to fully remote if everything's working well.
Okay, so we've got specialization, we've got timing, we've got a bit of flexibility on our side. But what about those of us who are really aiming for that pure 100% remote situation?
Yeah.
No office, no commute, just work from home bliss.
Right.
Is that even realistic in higher ed?
It's definitely harder.
Yeah.
Not impossible, though. You just need a slightly different approach. You really have to prove your worth, even from afar.
Okay, how do we do that? How do we show them we can deliver the goods, even if we're not physically in the office?
Well, you have to really highlight your expertise, your seniority. Have you managed projects before, led teams? Can you point to concrete accomplishments that show you can work independently and get results?
So show them you're not just someone who can do the job. You're the best person for the job, period.
Right. And don't limit yourself geographically either.
Oh, good point.
The remote job market is, it's evolving all across Australia. A position that might not be available remotely in Sydney could be wide open in Brisbane or Melbourne.
Yeah, casting a wider net.
Exactly. And once you've identified those opportunities, you've got to sell your competitive advantage. What makes you unique?
I like that.
Yeah, what skills or experience can you bring to the table that other candidates can't?
It's not just about ticking boxes. It's about figuring out what makes you uniquely valuable
For sure.
and then communicating that.
Exactly. Know your worth, present it confidently, do your research on salary expectations and the location you're targeting, and be realistic with your ask, especially when you're also requesting fully remote.
Good point. Now, this might surprise our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Has you considered looking at remote opportunities in government jobs?
Oh, absolutely. The public sector is actually a growing area for remote work in Australia.
I always kind of assumed government jobs were, pretty traditional when it comes to work arrangements.
Yeah, a lot of people think that. But the pandemic really forced these agencies to embrace remote work, and a lot of them found it surprisingly successful.
Yeah.
In fact, some agencies went completely from 100% in office to 100% remote, just like that.
Wow. That's a big shift. So for our listeners out there, if you're looking for stability, a chance to make a difference, maybe don't rule out the government sector.
Yeah, definitely don't. They're actively recruiting for remote roles in NSW and other states too.
Lots of options out there. But knowing where to look is only half the battle, right? How do we actually make ourselves stand out in a sea of applicants? That's what we'll tackle next.
Okay, so let's dive into making that application shine. Your resume and cover letter, those are your first impressions, especially for remote gigs.
Yeah, for sure. So how do we tailor those to like really grab a hiring manager's attention in this remote higher ed world?
You want to highlight those skills that just scream remote work ready, right?
Okay, like what?
Think strong communication, self-motivation, excellent time management. Those are like essential for any remote worker. But
Mhm.
you can go beyond just listing them.
So instead of just saying, I'm a great communicator, we need to show them how.
Exactly. Give concrete examples of successful remote work experiences. Maybe you collaborated with a team across different time zones on a big project, or you consistently met deadlines, exceeded goals, all while working independently.
I see. Like paint a picture for them.
Yeah, prove you can thrive in that remote environment.
Got it. And what about the cover letter?
Mhm.
How do we make that, remote friendly?
Don't be shy about the fact that you're looking for a remote position. Address it directly in your cover letter and explain why you think you'd excel in that setting.
Right.
It's your chance to connect your skills and experience to that specific university or department you're applying to.
So like if they're really into online learning, we should play up our experience with that.
Exactly. Show them you're not just looking for any remote job, you're passionate about their institution and what they're doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. The more we can align ourselves with their goals, the better.
Right. It shows you've done your research, you're genuinely interested.
Okay, now let's say we've got a killer resume, a great cover letter, we land the interview. Any tips for acing a remote interview? Really making that final push.
Preparation is key. And that includes like the tech side of things.
Oh, right.
Make sure you've got a reliable internet connection, a quiet professional space for the interview, no technical glitches, no noisy distractions. We want them focused on you.
Yeah, it's almost like setting up your own little broadcasting studio, right?
Exactly. First impressions matter, even virtually. And speaking of confidence, practice those answers to common interview questions, especially the ones about remote work.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Be ready to discuss your time management strategies, your communication style, how you stay motivated when you're working independently.
So we're showing them we've really thought this through.
Right, that you're prepared to thrive in that environment. But remember, it's not just about showcasing your skills and experience, it's also about finding the right fit.
Yeah, for sure.
The interview is a two-way street, right? Use it to assess whether that university, that specific role, really aligns with your needs, your career goals. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
So things like team dynamics, work culture, their expectations for remote employees.
Exactly. Get a sense of whether you'd actually be happy and successful there.
Good advice.
And don't forget, even if you don't land this job, every interview is a learning experience. Take notes afterward, reflect on what went well, what could be improved.
It's all part of the process.
Yeah. Each interview gets you closer to that dream job.
Yeah.
Now, before I move on, I wanted to circle back to something we touched on earlier. The whole remote opportunities in government jobs thing.
Yeah, let's talk more about that.
It's a trend worth exploring.
I think a lot of people still have this image of government work being very traditional office bound, but that's not really the case anymore, is it?
Definitely not. We're seeing remote roles at all levels of government, from entry-level positions all the way up to senior management, even executive roles.
Wow, that's amazing.
And a lot of these agencies, they're actively highlighting their remote work policies to attract top talent.
Makes sense.
They realize that offering that flexibility is, crucial in today's job market.
So for our listeners, as you're looking at higher ed, don't overlook the public sector.
Right.
You might find your perfect remote role in a place you totally didn't expect. All right, so we've talked about finding these jobs, applying for them, but there's one big piece we haven't really covered yet:
What's that?
salary negotiation.
Ah, yes.
How do we approach that, when remote work is part of the deal?
It's a good question, and it's one that I think a lot of people get kind of nervous about. Remember that stat we talked about flexibility being, more important than salary for some folks?
Yeah, definitely. It shows how things are changing.
Exactly. So when you're negotiating, you can use that to your advantage. Think about it. Frame your request for remote work not as a demand, but as a solution.
A solution.
Yeah, something that benefits both you and the university.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, hey, I need to work remotely,
Mm-mm.
we should be positioning it as a way to, I don't know, boost our productivity, help the team.
Exactly. You could say something like, I'm really excited about this opportunity and I know I can make a big impact. To really maximize my productivity, though, I'd love to work remotely, say, 2 days a week.
I see.
And then you highlight the benefits, right? Like maybe it gives you more focused time for those complex tasks. Or no commute means more working
It's
hours.
a win-win.
Right. And remember, even if they don't immediately say yes, don't give up.
Right.
Be ready to talk about, maybe some alternative arrangements or really emphasize your past success with remote work.
So be persistent, but professional.
Exactly. Advocate for your needs, but be open to compromise as well.
Find that balance.
Right. Build that trust with your potential employer. Now, before we wrap up, I want to remind everyone about a fantastic resource for finding these remote higher ed jobs.
Okay, what is it?
academicjogs.com.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. It's like a gold mine of opportunities. You can find open positions, connect with different universities, stay up to date on what's happening in the field.
Yeah, it's a great platform for navigating this whole world of higher ed careers.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about how the higher ed job landscape is changing, the whole importance of flexibility, and we gave some hopefully really practical strategies for finding and landing that perfect remote role.
Yeah, we busted some myths about government jobs, talked about specialization, and, how to present yourself as that top candidate, even if you're not in the office.
So to our listeners, remember, the future of work, it's flexible. Embrace it, be strategic, and don't be afraid to go after what you want. That dream job is out there.
It is, and with the right approach, a little bit of hustle, you can make it yours. Good luck with your job hunt.
That's it for our deep dive into remote higher ed jobs. We'll see you next time for another exploration of, well, whatever fascinating topic we decide to tackle.